Hello and welcome back to AdaPulse, the community-funded news channel, bringing you up to date with the latest in Cardano. And because we're community-funded, there is no paper motion, there's no coin shilling, we don't even discuss the token price. We just bring you the information. Today I'm talking with Santiago, one of the founders from TxPipe. TxPipe is an organization that is aiming to bring open source tooling to the Cardano ecosystem to streamline the development process. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Can you walk us through your experience and background and how you first became interested and involved with the Cardano ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. I've been a software developer for over 20 years now. When I started, it was just about building websites using HTML. But from there, I did a little bit of everything. My main focus right now for the last 5-10 years, I would say, is distributed systems, meaning backend services that need to interact with each other and solve things that scale horizontally and that has a very heavy component of networking communication between those services, and where the main goal is to tackle scale and complicated workloads. Mm-hmm. A year ago, and yes, it's about some years ago, we started with our company, which was a software factory here based in Buenos Aires. We started to look for blockchain ecosystems where we could provide some sort of product or some sort of service that integrated blockchain with our knowledge of distributed systems. And we started looking different blockchains, mainly from the technical perspective, because that's what we know how to do. And we ended up in Cardano. And we understood from the beginning that the architectural decisions behind the technology were the right ones. Mm-hmm. Proof of stake, non-custodial proof of stake, the UTXO model, functional programming, and so forth. There were a lot of architectural decisions in the Cardano foundations by reading the papers and by understanding the technology that convinced us of moving into this ecosystem. So the first project that we tackled within the Cardano ecosystem was a tool called Aura. Aura, it's a component that allows you to connect to the Cardano node directly without any intermediates, and it will read blocks as they are minted, and it will generate events that you can read from the other side, or you can push to some other tool, such as an event queue, for example, Kafka, for example, SQS, or some webhook where you're listening through HTTP for something of interest for your application. So with Aura, you could just connect the event on the block to your system in an event-driven fashion. That was our first project, and it got a lot of great feedback. And we decided that we wanted to push forward. So we started with new open source projects. The last one that we released is called Demeter, which is development and hosting platform for the apps that are integrated with the Cardano blockchain. And that's where we are at the moment.
Can you talk a little bit about Demeter and sort of the impact it's having on the ease of setup for developers on Cardano?
Yeah, sure. One of the main pain points from our perspective, and for what we hear discussing the same topic with other developers, is that Cardano has a very complex onboarding process. You have to go through the steps of setting up your own node, syncing the node. If you need data, you need DB-sync and access to a Postgres database. Then you get to know Optimios, and you want to set up Optimios. And that's not even that's without even starting with the actual smart contract development. When you get there, you need to set up the whole Haskell and Plutus toolchain, which has a lot of dependencies, and the build process is quite tedious and long. So this whole thing could take several days to set up. And that's a problem because developers which are trying to get into the ecosystem, they will probably analyzing the level of effort required with the process of development. So there is a high chance that they will just go somewhere else because the process is too complicated to onboard. The idea of the meter is to try to lower the entry barrier by providing, first of all, these cloud-based development workspaces, where just by creating your project, you get access to a VS Code instance. VS Code, as being an integrated development environment, is what many developers, not every developer, but many developers use for the day-to-day programming tasks. So by creating this project, you get a cloud-based workspace, and with everything installed already. You have the Plutus libraries, you have access to a node, you have access to Ocmios, you have access to DBSync. I keep mentioning these different technology names. They are all tools, infrastructure components that are required to develop with Cardano, and you get all of this out of the box. And most importantly, in a multi-tenant scenario, because these are heavy components. These workloads, having a node, having a DBSync, they all consume a lot of resources, CPU, memory, disk. So it doesn't make much sense for every developer to have its own setup in the local laptop or machine. So by having these cloud environments, they can share the same resources. Several developers can share the same resources, and the total cost would be distributed among the different users. So it's easier to manage and cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's sort of really important to lowering the barrier of entry. As we all know, developers take the path of least resistance, and sort of I know because I'm one of those. So sort of looking at Cardano 4 or 5 months ago, it was sort of a big headache of how do you even start. What sort of some of the challenges that you faced when building these tools?
Well, a lot of challenges. Some are not related to Cardano. Building a cloud-based platform, it has its challenges from the scale perspective, from the security perspective. But these are all things that we were used to doing before getting to know Cardano. This was our main focus on previous projects. So those are always challenges, but we knew how to tackle them. Now, integrating every piece of software that the community uses to interact with Cardano, I think that's the main challenge. One of the good things and bad things at the same time about Cardano, it's its diversity. It's good because we need diversity, and that gives us a more resilient ecosystem for sure, but at the same time means that we have a very heterogeneous set of tools that not always work together nicely. So you have to work a little extra to integrate all of those things. But once you get it, it's done, and you can just use it. So yeah, I would say that the diversity of tools and protocols was one of the main challenges. But again, it gives us resilience as an ecosystem, having many different teams and many different ways of tackling the problems related to blockchain, the app development.
Yeah, so I think that sort of leads on to sort of the importance of open source development within the Cardano ecosystem, and sort of why it's crucial for the growth and bringing on developers. A lot of the main projects, such as Meld, Charlie 3, Optim, have built basically their own tooling for Cardano, yet are hesitant to release it due to business competition. Where should the line be between open source and proprietary software financially and ethically, in your opinion?
Yeah, building open source is hard, but also building a business model on top of open source is hard. So I wouldn't be too harsh on teams that are investing on some technology and they want to keep them for their own. I think if that makes business sense, go for it. Now, if you are looking for adoption, if you're looking for other teams to adopt your tools and your protocols, that's when open source is actually a business advantage. Because if you're a developer on the other side and you want to integrate some sort of technology, one of the main things that you will look for is that do I have access to the source code? Do I have a community around that component that it's active and will improve the system as we move forward? Can I hack it? Meaning that can I use it and tweak it if I have a very specific use case? Those are all things that are very high in the priority list of a developer when it's analyzing which tool to use. So if you're looking for adoption, you should see open source as an advantage, as a way to gain more adoption, not as a risk.
Mm-hmm. So, as you mentioned, open source is fairly hard to build a business model around, and obviously it takes a lot of time and costs a lot of money. What support have you had from the community and organizations, and what more is needed to help you build these open source tools?
Well, the support from the community has been great. We are a very small team, but if you count all of the contributions from the different developers out there, we have been able to achieve things that wouldn't be possible without it. So I can say for other communities, but I can say that the Cardano developer community, it's very active and very eager to contribute to anything that pushes the ecosystem forward. That has been a great experience, and honestly, one of the main reasons why we're building on Cardano. So I would say that I couldn't ask for more kind of contributions to the projects. I would say that if you're looking to build something in Cardano and you need a community of developers, reach out to us, connect in our Discord server, and you will find there developers that are eager to help out with whatever project you have, and maybe we can build something together. So my request would be just reach out and see what we can do to develop new cool technology in Cardano.
Mm-hmm. And I guess so. As the community grows, many members are going to be eager to start building on the platform, but a lot of them are quite unsure on where to begin. What is the most sort of effective roadmap for individuals who wish to become proficient developers on the Cardano platform, taking into consideration both that have no experience and then some that do? Where would you start?
Well, I think that I can say where not to start. I wouldn't go initially for smart contract development, because there is this notion that when you're building blockchain, you have to build a smart contract, and depends on your use case. But there is a lot of off-chain components, meaning all of the code that you have to do outside, that runs outside of the blockchain and needs to interact with the chain somehow. And there's a lot of things to do there, from front ends to middleware components to backend services. And it gives you not only an easier path, but also it provides you with the knowledge about how the blockchain works from the outside. Once you have that covered, that's where I would try to tackle some sort of smart contract where you now have two different components for the same application, some that runs outside of the chain and some that runs within the chain. I will use that path, first off chain, then on chain.
Mm-hmm. And sort of specifically, what tech stack should people look at using to sort of learn to create the sort of the back end systems?
Well, for backend systems, there are many options. Neither is better than the other one, depends on your use case. But if you know Haskell and you're comfortable with functional programming, I would say go there, because a lot of the tools and lots of the code in the ecosystem are already Haskell. So you will just feel at home. But the problem is that there's not that many Haskell developers out there. So the alternative is probably use one of these JavaScript frameworks that are already quite evolved. There is Lucid, there is the Mesh SDK, and you can also try out some a little bit lower level approach where you use the multi-platform serialization library, where you get to construct transactions directly from JavaScript, which needs a little bit more effort, but it's also an option. And that's mainly for the front end components that one would have to build in order to interact with the chain. If you want to build some sort of middleware or backend service, there are many stacks. I personally would recommend using Rust, which is the one that I feel more comfortable in, and that there is a growing and evolving ecosystem of tooling around. Mainly, most of the things that we do in TxPipe are currently based on Rust.
Okay, so that's where people should start. What's something going on in the Cardano space that you find particularly interesting at the moment?
Well, personally, I think Mithril, it's something that I look forward to having it already as part of our toolbox. It will give us the opportunity to sync blockchain data in a more easy way, fast, more performant. But still, we are, I think, a little bit away from having it in mainnet. But yes, that's one of the technologies that I'm looking forward to. All the research on layoffs, Ouroboros layoffs, it seems really interesting, and how that will improve performance and security on the protocol. And then one of the projects that I'm really interested from our side, from TxPipe, is Icon as a smart contract language, which I think will lower the entry barrier a lot for smart contract development. All of these things that we were discussing about Bluetooth TX being hard to set up, I think that's where Icon shines. You get something very lightweight with few moving parts, and something that you can configure in just a few minutes and just start coding. So I think that Icon, it's also really something to look forward in the ecosystem.
And how do you see Demeter and the other tools under TxPipe evolving in the future, and what are your plans for them?
Yes, so I mentioned that you can now use Demeter as a development tool, something that lowers the entry barrier if you wanted to develop, if you're in that phase of your project. We want to start pushing Demeter as a tool for hosting applications and to consume these infrastructure components for your production projects. We're actually using, we're actually providing some of these services already to some of the projects launching mainnet. The ShapeX store is using some of our Demeter services, and we want to explore how we can provide a good developer experience for that later phase in the development cycle. Because we usually think of development as when you're coding, but deploying an application and monitoring an application and maintaining that application with updates and security and so forth, those are also part of the development cycle, are also concerns that a developer has when building technology. So we want to push the meter to become a platform where you can safely deploy, monitor, and manage the apps easily and with a great developer experience.
And what time frame are we looking for that coming out?
Well, actually, we're already testing it. So if you are eager to help us out with this process, again, reach out on our Discord server, and we can set up a sandbox environment where we can give you all the tools required to start deploying your application. And we're evolving continuously. And the idea is that we will be releasing new features. We're working hard on the deployment pipeline so that you can just git push to your repository, and that will build and deploy your the app front end and back end and smart contracts all from the same build pipeline. We're working hard on that, but we already have a lot of the pieces available on the meter. So if you want to try it out, for sure, reach out and we can work together. And all the feedback will be much appreciated.